I don't know how well I'm going to describe um, my process in car modeling, because I'm not really good at talking about it. I just do it. But I decided to show a bit of tricks and some tactics that I use to maintain a neat surface across my vehicle. And I'm going to show how I'm able to make sure the reflections don't break across each panel. And some of those things I show is not 100% of it, but it is a strong solution that I've been using, which works most of the time. To model my car, I've been using a guide. So this first stage when modeling my car is a first search for a good surface, and then I would give it a very high subdivision, 4 levels of subdivision. Turn off the optical display. As you can see, it's a very high subdivision level. Let's turn that back on. So overall, my first stage in modeling a car, any car, is modeling this basic surface. Let's show the most prominent example where I've been applying this tactic. So as you can see here, I've got a couple of modifiers, starting off with a subdivision. And then I would get all the vertices from the subdivision to shrink wrap onto the guide mesh. But as you can see here, I have multiple shrink wrap modifiers because I'm dealing with quite an interesting surface. I also have multiple data transfer modifiers which help me in an interesting way. So I'll go down to an example here. Looking at this in solid view doesn't really help, so I'll look at this in the look div. Even though the mesh is not combined, I have it shrink wrapped, and I also have the vertices on the edge shrink wrapped to the surface. I'm not showing a very good example here because I haven't turned it on, I don't believe. Works sometimes, not all the time I guess. But I have the same thing going on here, where it looks like it's joined, but it is not. Let's get rid of the metallic value to see this better. Doing things like this help me to optimize the poly count overall when working with a large-scale project. Number one priority is to optimize everything. I don't have to subdivide everything just to doing this allows me just to work with less polys overall, and that's really what I want to do. You can see here I was able to have my poly work like a ruckus. Even though my poly work is not that great, the surface still looks smooth. A couple of years ago I used to be fanatical about maintaining quads and having a really good edge flow, well, topology, but I don't know, edge flow kinda matters still. With this tactic, I could slice the vehicle in a horrible way. The surface still looks fine. Even down here. But that's because I'm cutting it on safe areas that are kind of safe to just mess around with. Let's just do it here as an example. So, not only are the vertices being shrink wrapped onto that guide mesh, I also have specific vertices copying the vertex normals of those guide meshes. Now, when I hit undo, it's going to take a while because the project's gone really big. Every time I hit undo, it just lags and freezes. I don't know why that is though. Undo. Anyway, I'll just make sure I don't save it after showing this example. The most profound area of how I use guides is on this tail end here. To keep this circle looking flat, I used... Hold on, let me show the wires first. So even though the wires don't look that great, the topology work is kinda lousy. Very lousy. And normally, with subdivision, and only subdivision, this kind of area wouldn't be looking as round. Let me show the guide. So essentially, I have this cylinder cutting right through. And then I would have these vertices mimicking the vertex normals of that object. Let me show you what it looks like before and after. So this is what it looks like without it. Even the shrink wrap, I believe. Oh no, it's not there. But this is what it looks like without it. This is what it looks like with it on. I also had guides to help me assist with maintaining a good surface on the side here. For example, I had this surface, even though it's not exactly aligned, I still had it looking flat. Let me show you an example. Those vertices were looking fugly. This one. Let me show you what it looks like without the modifier. Down here you can see a crease, and I don't want that. So I got the vertex normals to mimic this guide. And I'm not sure if I'm explaining myself very well, but I'm just showing some of the secret sauce that gets me maintaining clean surfaces on my vehicles. This area you can see pinching, and IRL, the reflections aren't pinching like that. So maintain the neat even with topology like this. You can see I've got areas where I have tries. I don't care about the tries. If I was to maintain quads, I'd be wasting my time trying to get neat surface workflow. A neat mesh. And that, to get a neat mesh, to get a neat topology overall and just maintain quads is just a pure waste of time. So I have found tactics to help me come up with an optimal workflow, and as you can see as I'm transferring the vertex normals. Looks neat. Same thing goes for this area. Instead of having any form of shrink wraps, you bevel something and the vertex normals will tend to screw up your mesh. So this is what it looks like without vertex normals, and this is what it looks like with the Y-frame on. We've got three-sided bevels. But in the guide, to have it looking flat, I had these four planes. Four flat planes to act as guides for the vertex normals. We have and as you can see, like it slowly transitions from not being used. Red means that they're assigned and blue means that they're not assigned. I'm also having to deal with funny vertex normals down here, annoying pinching, and the only way for me to fix this is either by making those edges hard or using a data transfer where we have soft bevels without the edges of those bevels looking hard, transitioning into a hard surface. These kind of tactics allow me overall not to think about topology as much. It allows me to only think about it as much as I need to. And to add insult to injury, I've purposely added n-gons to my mesh. What really gets the mesh looking neat overall is the vertex normals. I've had moments where I've imported SVG files or CAD or any form of parametric data into geometric software, and the only reason why it looks so neat from a CAD data is because the vertex normals. The geometry, when resetting it, looks completely screwed over. I mean, I'm sure if any of you have ever imported CAD data into Blender, Maya, or Max, you've seen the wireframes and they look screwed up. The vertex normals is pretty much the key to this. Now, I'm pretty bilingual in both softwares, Maya and Blender. I'd like to show an example of how I was using the vertex normals in Maya. So let me just switch over. Here is one of the cars I've been lodding for work. And here we have the fuel gauge. It is not connected to the mesh, but it still looks like it is inset, even though it is a flat plane. And that's because the vertex normals are facing each other. I will quickly show how I got to this stage. So let me just extract this as an example and work on this and only this. We have our mesh. Originally, to get that inset effect, it was like this. But doing it like this doubles the amount of poly requires just to get this inset convex looking sort of effect. So let's take a look at the vertex normals while I do this. Right now the vertex normals are green, meaning they are not locked. I will soften all the edges, make only this hard. Right now we are seeing that inset sort of effect. Then I'll go to lock the normals and remove and we have our inset effect. So even though this is a flat plane, the vertex normals yeah, and I mean that's all I really have to say for my discoveries so far. I do think about my topology sometimes and how I could get a good surface. But when it comes down to complex areas like this area, especially this area, then I'm going to find whatever guerrilla tactics I can to get the job done as fast as possible. At the end of the day, no one is going to see the work of your wires. They are only going to see your final result. The wires do matter, but only to a certain degree. Please do not be fanatical about using your wires. In the future, I may show further examples of how I do this stuff, and I'm open to discussion about ways of optimizing workflows, ways of optimizing my workflow or whatnot and all that stuff.